the last time, Alexis, I saw you, we were talking about women's sports in Abu Dhabi. And Midge, the last time we were talking, I saw you, we were talking about women's sports in Cincinnati. And you guys, like it's just been a couple months, are doing lots and lots of stuff. Now, Midge, I want to talk about your last few weeks. You were on Broadway. You were in Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. We'll talk about your show, but first, I want to know those are two experiences I will predict I will never have, which is to open up Chicago or open up the pages of SI Swimsuit. We definitely will not see that. Tell us about that. Tell about those specific, then we'll get into it.
Thank you. Well, we also have to keep the main thing. My team also won the CONCACAF Champions Cup in
That's right, way to go Gotham.
Club World Cup.
I take your sports excellence as a given. It's what you layer on top is why you're here.
Yeah, we did win a championship. No, it's been a really fun few weeks. I attribute some of it to the fact that I'm in New York, and that's just such a fun market to be able to explore different parts of the sports industry. But I attribute the other half of it to the fact that I think the rest of the world is catching up to how much fun they can have with female athletes across industry and how we can be used in different markets.
Yep. And what was tell us about the Broadway moment. Were you nervous? Listen, you're playing, global television audiences and people cheering and booing, and then you had to go out in front of 2,000 people. How did that how did that stage moment feel? Were you nervous or you got this?
I was nervous, but for me, I was auditioning for Law & Order SVU. That is my my true dream.
We have a bunch of producers out there.
It was an incredible experience, and the Actors and Actresses Guild is just absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't believe I was on stage with such amazing performers, so it was really a privilege.
That's cool. And Alexis, I'm excited to talk, and then we're going to just talk more broadly, but maybe catch up on your Chelsea investment, where, of course, Alexis, had one of the great women's sports investments in recent history with Angel City. And now you've gone to the other side of the pond. What's going on?
Yeah, look, 2019, I started with a tweet storm about how undervalued women's professional sports was, and at the time had a radical idea that a professional women's soccer team could one day be worth $1 billion, and that led me to obviously be the founding control owner of Angel City. But I started looking across the pond, especially after the English women won the Euro and brought it home, and it seemed like it galvanized a lot of interest there in the home of soccer, football, for the women's game. And I was actually looking at other clubs, perhaps ones where I could get a controlling stake, and Midge has been an amazing resource on the sport and really talked me into Chelsea. Even though it wasn't going to be a controlling stake, we ended up investing and buying about 8-9% of it. I'll be joining the board. And our goal for this club, they have a very full trophy case, and they really represent some of the very best in football. And we want to make them America's team. If you're going to you can cheer for Gotham. Hopefully, maybe you'll cheer for Angel City too. But we'd love for you to also catch some Chelsea women's matches as well. And I'm excited. I think global football has never been a bigger opportunity, and folks are realizing, like Midge said, the women's game is just as captivating, just as compelling, and brands far more marketable to a lot of new audiences that normally don't get to see sports.
No, if you look at the U.S. women's national team, it's clear it's gender neutral, and in some ways the women's national team's probably more popular, has been more popular at various points. Why do you think, and then I want to talk about off-season, why do you think, you would think in the UK, which is a mature market, a soccer/football crazy market, why is women's soccer not further ahead?
I think it's the gift and the curse of being such a football crazy, especially men's football crazy market, because you have to talk to consumers and get them to reimagine football and excellence with women, where they're so used to decades and decades and decades of indoctrination of men's football being it. The opportunity in America is that, as we all know, even if you're not a fan of American soccer yet, you will be after this, the women are excellent. They have a legacy of greatness. Our men, not so much. And Americans love celebrating that excellence. And that's why the NWSL was so much more obvious even 5 years ago. And it's taken more time in England, despite there being more popularity for the sport.
Makes sense. And Midge, it's cool being a star in New York, but it's also cool being a soccer star in London, so yeah.
I have nothing to do with players.
No tampering allowed, okay.
No tampering.
But you guys are partners. Let's talk about off-season. Midge, when we talked in Cincinnati in the fall, you were like, oh, we're gonna do this cool show-off season. And I was like, that sounds good. Sounds great. A 250 million viewers later, here we are. And Alexis, you helped bankroll it. Tell us, catch everybody up on this sneaky hit you guys have.
Well, if you haven't seen it already,
Who has seen it? Raise your hand. Who has not seen it? Raise your hand. You know what? That's upside potential. I like it.
Oh my
So go on.
goodness. You guys need
It's
to
on
live
Amazon.
You need to live online just a little bit more. It was on X, and it is a 6-episode series. They're really quick, 30-minute episodes, but it basically took female soccer players who all played in my league, the NWSL, who played for different teams, and we lived in a house during the off-season, and we brought cameras so you could see how we train, and you could see kind of our interpersonal relationships and our personal stories and personalities as well. This is the first of its kind, so no other league or sport or network or industry really has ever looked at this part of a season for any sport. And the concept of taking, a bunch of players and really zooming in on what life is like when the cameras are gone, what that training period looks like, what it looks like to be traded in the off season, what your diet looks like. No one's done that before, so it was really successful. And like you said, we had around 275 million views in less than a year. So really proud of that.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't stop there, does it?
Don't tell them.
All right, I'm not letting tell them. Not surprisingly, based on that success, though, there will be more off seasons to cover here under this franchise.
What about in different sports?
That's a great idea. Great idea.
I'm going to reverse a question. And we even touched on it a little bit in the morning, which is, okay, there's a big opportunity in women's sports. There's a huge delta between how many people watch and how it's monetized. But I want to be a little more provocative. Why hasn't the finances of women's sports scaled faster? What's holding it back? Because again, if you look at audience, you look at momentum, it just seems like we should be even going fast. It's growing like crazy, but it probably should be growing even faster. What's holding it back? Is it TV rights? Is it sponsorships? What's the key here? Either of you, or both of you, actually.
I mean, my hot take is, I think when we look back on the legacy of underinvestment in women's professional sports, we will find a dangerous cocktail of sexism, racism, and business incompetence. And you can tweet that, it's okay. I mean, because here's the simplest, and that's part of the reason you're seeing that whipsaw now, right? It would not be growing this fast if it hadn't been suppressed for so long. And the answer was in front of us this whole time. I assume some of you have been to the US Open before. I think a few of you are fans of tennis. In the United States of America, professional tennis is a first-class sport. The athletes get paid, they get supported, they get taken care of. Shout out Billie Jean King. And the result is more Americans tune in to the US Open women's final than the men. Google it, it happens every year. You don't even need American women in the final. More Americans watch the US Open women's final than the men. Tennis is as important as a women's sport.
The rallies are better.
If not bigger.
It's a better sport.
I personally do think it's a better sport because each point counts more because there's fewer sets. Yep. That's just math. But at the end of the day, there was always a proof point here in the United States for a few decades. And the reality is now that the investment is there, these amazing athletes have always been there. And I'm just grateful to ride that wave. I mean, it was literally, you can find that tweet storm. Megan Rapinoe's team had sold for $3.5 million. And that number shocked me because I didn't follow the sport, but I knew who she was. And I knew she was worth at least that much in marketing revenue for herself every year. And
you could either buy that or McDonald's franchise. That was
and the most exciting thing is, as people are realizing this, it is not charity, right? This is about business. And the brands that you can bring in are spending real money in beauty, in fashion, in CPG that have never been able to advertise or partner with men's sports. And yet even the brands that have been partnering in men's sports, let's be honest, they're trying to reach the women in the household anyway because they're actually controlling consumer spending. And so I cannot speak more highly about it, and you'll never hear me reference it as charity because I think even the most well-intentioned people treated it that way and put it in the position that it was in.
I have a little bit of a different answer, though I concur.
Please.
I grew up in a house full of just men, so no mom, no sisters. It was just a boys' club, and you'd think that when it comes to sports, it might make me feel a bit other or left out, but it was actually the exact opposite. I grew up with this unemotional respect for women's sports. And my father, he's a stockbroker, and my brother's a lawyer, so you can imagine what the dinner table conversations were like whenever we discussed anything. It was all logic and analysis and debate and ROIs, and that didn't change when we spoke about sports or women's sports. So to us, marketability was marketability. Greatness was greatness, and it didn't matter who was on television. We were just watching whatever was good, and often that ended up being women. As I got older, I think I realized that the rest of the world really looks at women's sports as a cause or a charity, a moral obligation that we need to fight for equality, and that's just really not the case. It turns this business into something that needs support instead of something that needs scale and investment. And I think that's the perspective that has really changed a lot. And what we've been able to do, I think, in media and marketing is really, really reframe the investment that we're putting into it to place value on the sport rather than just the intention.
You know, jumping off on that, because that's a really good point. So if we're in this space, which has been clearly underinvested in and under cared for, how do we this seems also a leapfrog moment. Couldn't we, and Alexis, this is, you're, Mr. Reddit and everything, this is your area where isn't this a leapfrog moment where we could take advantage of the underinvestment, to actually build a better league than some of the men's leagues? Is there any ideas in that area, or am I crazy?
A better league?
Is there a leapfrog moment in terms of creating women's sports leagues that are better than men's sports leagues because you have the advantage of creating something entirely new with a lot of learning?
Absolutely. Women drive consumption. Women are the top consumers, and for the longest time, we've put women's sports in the same box that men's sports is, packaged it up in the same way, and have been like, here, watch it, it's amazing, instead of really thinking about who your new target audience is and how to market that to the people who really, really want to see it and where your value is. So I think it really does need a whole reframing in the industry and in business.
Oh yeah, and I love the fact that I could do an entire panel and not be asked about Reddit. I don't want that to be my legacy, and it's been so heartening in the last 5 years how much the work that we've been doing building in this sector in particular has grown. Look, even with our newly announced team-based women's track and field league, Athlos, when we launched it with Sha'Carri Richardson, Gabby Thomas, and Tara Davis-Woodhall, every one of them are equity holders. And I can point to examples in the market now like Unrivaled and others that are building new leagues, even TGL, even though it's dudes for now, who are building new leagues where the athletes actually have a stake.
That's right.
And we can't go back in time, though sometimes I wish we could. We can build better now going forward, and I absolutely think technology and even the operations of these new leagues and new organizations is going to be much smarter, much better aligned.
Technology, but you're absolutely right. It's equity. When everybody's rowing the same direction, it's a lot easier to row faster. So where do we see? Let's do 10 years from now. 10 years, not crazy, not 20, but not 5. Where are we at in terms of audiences, revenue, reach, whatever you want to talk about? What would be your optimistic but not crazy forecast for where we could see this in 10 years? Because I think that's a time frame everybody here can get their arms around and gauge as an investment opportunity.
Oh. All right, I'll start. The 10-year forecast is like how I live, because as an early stage investor and company builder, that is the perfect framing. So thank you. There will absolutely be multiple billion-dollar franchises, women's sports professional franchises. Shout out to Clara, who surpassed our Angel City valuation with the Liberty at.
She confirmed it this morning, 450, confirmed from the store, confirmed from the horse's mouth.
And the maths, folks. So I think we'll see multiple billion-dollar franchises in 10 years for sure. I think we will see many sports or leagues where the viewership numbers and revenue numbers are comparable to men's. Maybe not in all sports here in the United States, but there will be multiple. And I also think the model, shameless plug, that Midge has pioneered around storytelling through, would you say, a woman's lens around sports will be much more mainstream. These stories are really compelling, not just to women, by the way, but also men. And if you're one of those guys who's been guilty of watching that reality show, like guilt watching that reality show that your partner is into, this is the guilt-free version of that product.
I think you'll see female
Maybe
athletes.
from an athlete's point of view, 10 years, a superstar like yourself, how does it look different than it does for you now?
Yeah, I think you'll see more so than now female athletes as the leaders and main driving force in culture, more so than normal celebrities, Hollywood, or influencers. I think female athletes will take that role.
Huge. Totally agree. The athletes in sport is actually the anti-AI thesis of the creator economy, because the one durable form of entertainment 10 years from now is sport. We will never take our kids to see robots play soccer, right? And yet Hollywood, the music industry
Maybe in South Korea, but you know.
I mean, look, there will be some exceptions. I do think battle bots type gladiator fighting will happen,
yes.
which should be robots, by the way, not people. But AI, all this technology is not a replacement for, it's an enhancement for sport. And while Hollywood and many other industries will be challenged, sports will ascend. And when you're talking about needing that fundamental humanity, that also means that the people you will follow, you know, you've seen the latest releases, influencers, AI-generated influencers on demand, that's a real threat. But when you're actually talking about athletes, where their greatness comes from the actual human athleticism they perform, I totally agree with Midge.
Well, and then it accelerates also the TV rights, because as more and more content evolves, but still the only thing, you know, the only reason to watch live TV right now it really is sports, right? So you know that's a huge thing. And going to your point, Midge, also, I mean, we get a lot of, you know, we do the highest paid athlete list every year, and very few, you know, Serena's been on a couple, tennis players. That's kind of it. So there is a huge, I mean, we see that huge gap. We only got 2 minutes left. If we were looking at, all right, so what I'm hearing is, yes, we've seen a huge surge in prices, but there's still huge movement to go in relatively mature sports like basketball or soccer. What would be, if you guys were putting some venture money behind a emerging women's sport, what would it be? And you can, you know, if you have something you're putting some money in, you can feel free to disclose, just be transparent, go for it.
I guess this isn't technically a fundraising event for my sports and technology fund, but well, obviously Athlos is a big one. I think track and field has been underinvested in for way too long, and we had 3 million people tune in for our event last fall, and we're expecting far more. This October 10th here in New York at Icon, come one, come all, fastest women in the world, only the fastest at Athlos on October 10th.
How do you, let's just stick with that. How do you make a sport like that, which is the most elemental sport, which people run faster than the others, how do you make that modern and interesting?
You tell the stories of the athletes every minute they're not racing, going direct, using teams to create a format. It works in Formula One. If I want to watch little guys in fast cars and cheer for a team, do I want to watch the fastest woman in the world? Like, yes. And think of all the Americans that turn out, all the people in the world who turn out for the Kentucky Derby. The culture at the Kentucky Derby has not been relevant for 100 years. No disrespect, it's a fun time, but mint juleps and funny hats. Like, if we can turn out like that for dudes riding horses, what can we do for the fastest humans on the planet? It's a simple thesis.
You could invest in Athlos, which is Alexis's project.
Or
that I'm not involved in. Or you could get on a phone call with me and sign an NDA, and we could talk about some of the projects that I'm so excited to announce this summer. I think if there
Give us a hint.
You got to.
I know I can't say.
You can't just say call me in the summer. It's Iconoclast. Give us a hint.
The underinvestment in things for the off season.
No. Okay. If there was ever a piece of the sports industry that has been underinvested in, that you could invest in and unlock value that has yet to be unforeseen, it's the off season.
Well put. Well put.
There you go. There's the opportunity. Two great opportunity makers. We appreciate your time. Congrats on all the recent success. Check out Offseason. It's a great show. Check it out. Thank you both for your time. Super important topic.